And this dude is so smart that he has an appeal song wooing at the hearts of the people to worship the image. Oh, y'all slept on that. The Bible talks about it. Read chapter 3. The man has music going on because he understands the power that music possesses. He knows that music paves the way for whatever it is you want to indoctrinate people with. And so what does he do? He has the music playing, because he knows that if he breaks down the barriers of your heart, he can get to your mind. And you'll find yourself doing stuff you have no business doing. That's why even those Israelites who were there was bowing down. In Daniel chapter 3, we are immediately ushered to the problem that arises. Nebuchadnezzar, notwithstanding the dream and the interpretation given, in defiance, makes his own image of gold. God tells him through Daniel that his kingdom won't last. He says, hold my beer. Lord have mercy. All right, I'm not reaching you. You gave me the head and the torso. I will match that and raise you an entire body of gold. Nebuchadnezzar stubbornly thinks by making the image gold, his kingdom would not die and can withstand being struck by stone. And to cap it all, he demands the image that he made to be worshipped. Anyone who doesn't would be thrown in the burning fiery furnace, conveniently positioned in the view of the people so as to encourage complete compliance. Nebuchadnezzar seemed to almost anticipate that his edict would be opposed. And it didn't take long. His elite intelligentsia, not as brilliant, but they certainly do pay attention, who had been waiting for this moment, who had been watching the people, hear me, who were Babylonians and Israelites. Notices 3 Hebrew young men that are standing while everybody else is bowing and worshiping the image. This is disturbing because you couldn't distinguish between Babylonians and Israelites until the 3 young Hebrew boys remained standing. Oh, Father in heaven. And if you don't think that's going to repeat itself, then you apparently are not reading the Bible. History repeats itself. And Lord knows if we don't learn from our history what happens, we're bound to repeat it. Nebuchadnezzar is told of the 3 Hebrews who, though they had been set over the affairs of Babylon, paid no attention to him. They know how to stir up the pot. They do not serve his gods or worship the golden image he had set up. And Nebuchadnezzar is enraged. And he has the 3 Hebrew young men brought to him. Now, despite his reputation for brutality and cruelty, rather than have them killed on the spot, he questions them to see if the accusations were true. Y'all missed that. For Nebuchadnezzar to even take a moment to question goes to show you just how powerful of a witness these young men were. And he offers them one last opportunity to submit and surrender to his will. However, he makes a very cardinal mistake that proud, bombastic, ignorant people typically make. he defiantly asked, almost rhetorically, in verse 15 of chapter 3, and who is that God? Lord, have mercy today. Who is that God that shall deliver you? Here it is, out of my hands. So wait a minute, Brother Nebuchadnezzar. Are you saying that you are God? Well, you're about to find out who is God. His question exposes his arrogance and forgetfulness. He had forgotten who he was talking to in Daniel chapter 1. And in Daniel chapter 2, it escaped him how Daniel had revealed to him the dream and interpretation of what he had dreamed. His question seemed to have triggered the Hebrew young men in that they transitioned from courage to confidence. When you get to verse 16, they said, we don't need to defend ourselves. We have no need to answer or respond to you in this matter. Verse 17, if it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But here it is in verse 18. This is what speaks to me. But if not, Lord have mercy, be it known unto you, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. These three Hebrew young men had a confidence in God that was unshakable and unwavering, whether he delivered them or not. They were resolute in their posture. They had a made-up mind that was not at all intimidated by a burning fiery furnace. They would rather die than disobey God. I'm trying to get there. How about you? They knew the commandments. Whoa. And refused to serve or worship what the king had set up, whether it be God's or system. Yes, Lord. They would not be bullied or coerced by peer pressure, nor were they incentivized to do otherwise. When you know God, I hope I'm preaching to some believers in here. When you know God, you don't fear man. He who bows before God, can stand before anybody. These three Hebrew boys teach us what real faith in God looks like. They refused to bend. In other words, they refused to give in. They refused to bow. In other words, they refused to give up. And they refused to break. In other words, they refused to give out. These young men show us that faith in God is an inside job that must have an outward manifestation. Am I talking to any Bible readers here? James chapter 2 verse 17 says, faith without works is what, everybody? Is dead. These Hebrews peeped God. They knew all about God's providence, his provision, his protection, the price he's willing to pay, his penalty, his proof or record of history. They knew prophecy in the situation because they knew God. And having inside information influences attitude, perspective, and understanding. They knew that God had a purpose. They knew that God had a plan. They knew about his presence, and they sure enough knew about his power. I'm reminded of a Chinese proverb: to know the road ahead, you got to ask those coming back. Lord have mercy today. Oh, when we're talking about this, you and I need to understand that these Hebrew young men, they did not fear the wrath of the king, nor the burning fiery furnace. They feared God. God is looking for some folk who fear him. He's looking for some folk that love him, that to the point where they're willing to die for him. And I'm telling you today, he's looking for some folk that will not do his will because they're under pressure to do it. Oh, help me preach. But because they love God and because they want to please God, they just do what he says to do. So, church, they didn't just fear God. They didn't just know God. They loved God. How do you know when somebody loves God? Well, all you need to know is the scripture. What is love? That you keep his commandments. And when you look at these young men, their respect and reverence for God, here it is, led to their disobedience of men. This is an acknowledgement that the will of God and the will of man will inevitably be in opposition to each other because they want the same thing. But here's the truth of the matter. Only one is qualified to receive it. Therefore, the other must be created to give it. Where did their but if not faith come from? The answer is found in Daniel chapter 1 and 2. See, the truth of the matter is they understood what the issues really were. And they already knew the outcome. Oh, we talked about it. They understood their own history. Oh, I think I need to say that again. But if not faith means that you've got to know your history. I've got to know my history. Let me put it another way. Simply put, church, is that for you and I to have a but if not faith, we need to know the word of God. But it doesn't stop there. To have a but if not faith, we've also got to know who we are. It's not enough to know the history, because if all you know is the history, then you are still ignorant of what you need to be doing. But there's a catalyst, and the catalyst to do what you ought to be doing lies in knowing who you are. Because once you know the history and you know who you are in that history, then you know exactly what you ought to do. And here it is, church. What it is we're supposed to do is to simply do this: fear God and keep his commandments. I'm almost done. Church, consider with me. King Nebuchadnezzar represented the best and worst of man without God. Check it out, church. He is despotic. He is tyrannical. But the brother also had wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. How do you know that? The reason why you know that he had it, how can you test people if they've got wisdom? Lord have mercy. How do you know? How can you test somebody for them to see if they have wisdom, knowledge, and understanding if you don't already have it? The man thank you. The man was brilliant, but nobody talks about that. They talk about how wicked he is, but they don't talk about how brilliant the man was. And it's his brilliance why he could see God in those boys. Because without that brilliance, he'd have been blind too. But the man wasn't just wicked and dumb, he was wicked and smart. Lord have mercy. Now, to push it a step further, he even made an image of gold in defiance to the dream he had just been given, which meant he understood what the dream meant. And he was saying to God, no, it's not going like this. This is how it's going to be. And he made the whole image of gold. And then had the audacity to try to get everybody to drink the Kool-Aid. He tries to get everybody to serve and worship this image. And this dude is so smart that he has an appeal song wooing at the hearts of the people to worship the image. Oh, y'all slept on that. The Bible talks about it. Read chapter 3. The man has music going on because he understands the power that music possesses. He knows that music paves the way for whatever it is you want to indoctrinate people with. And so what does he do? He has the music playing. Because he knows that if he breaks down the barriers of your heart, he can get to your mind. And you'll find yourself doing stuff you have no business doing. That's why even those Israelites who were there was bowing down. But thanks be to God. Thanks be to God that there were 3 brothers who had enough sense, who had enough courage. No, I'm not even doing them justice. They had the confidence to stand on what they knew of God. And it didn't matter whether God moved or not. But if not, I'm letting you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I'm not bowing, I'm not bending, and you sure enough ain't gonna break me.